Commander.
Oh! Oh my god! Oh! Oh my god! Oh! Oh! No! Get the camera! Mommy!
Whether you're a Kingdom Hearts fan or part of the Versus 13 bereavement group, chances are that you're pretty curious about Verum Rex and what its purpose will actually be. To be honest, I am currently trying to just temper my expectations for the project, while also making an attempt to figure out what the heck it actually is. And I'm not going to go through this video and say that my thoughts are fact or say, hey, this stuff is definitely going to happen, because I, like everyone else, have no idea what the true reality of Verum Rex is. All we know is that it's best not to count Tetsuya Nomura out, as he's proven to be full of surprises over the years. It's hard to find words to describe him except as a creative tour de force. After all, his mentor was the father of Final Fantasy, Hironobu Sakaguchi. Thus, when it comes to a story that was very dear to Nomura, Final Fantasy Versus 13, I'd say it's clear there were some concepts and characters from within that world which he was unwilling to let go of. While I know some people, including myself, probably want Verum Rex to be its own game, it is possible that being a part of the Kingdom Hearts franchise is actually the best place for it to exist. Consider this. Nomura is the de facto leader. For all intent and purposes, it often feels as though he is given free reign over the creative direction and choices associated with it. I mean, just consider how much he's already thrown into the story that goes beyond your normal Disney or Square Enix project. When you think about it, the lore of that world is so deep that it could practically be studied like some sort of academic research, for goodness sake. Nomura views Final Fantasy in a very particular way, which is through the lens of Sakaguchi's idea for what the franchise could be. In other words, Final Fantasy is a game that has everything in it. With Versus 13, it was pretty clear that Nomura was attempting to build a game that fit this description. Despite his inability to bring that project to life in its original format, Versus 13 wasn't the first project Nomura worked on with this design philosophy. With Kingdom Hearts, Nomura himself has stated that he views the franchise as a set of games which have everything in them. So wouldn't it make sense then that a game with everything in it would also have room for a group of characters and settings associated with the original version of Versus 13? Well, of course it does. And with Nomura's usual liberties taken in each progressive entry, it doesn't seem far-fetched to believe the future of Verum Rex will be more than a short-lived experiment in the world of Kingdom Hearts. As for the direction it could take the Kingdom Hearts franchise, I've sat and watched countless times the footage and read as much as I could of anything press or interview related with Verum Rex. From that, I've come to view it in a different perspective than most people might expect. While there are undeniable connections to Versus 13, and even a few nods to The World Ends With You, my belief is that Nomura has different intentions for Yozora than just as a stand-in for his version of Noctis. What if the events of Verum Rex's storyline in Kingdom Hearts are more of an origin story for the new face of the Kingdom Hearts franchise? What if, as Sora's story comes to an end, Yozora is going to become the heir to the throne of Kingdom Hearts, per se? Inevitably, Sora's story will come to an end, but if Nomura isn't ready to retire at that point in time, what would the future of Kingdom Hearts look like? Perhaps an entirely new saga focused on new characters being introduced in the Verum Rex world of Quadratum, thus allowing Nomura the opportunity to have some sort of closure. I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen, but it does seem at least possible he's planned for something like this. Sora has been the driving force behind Kingdom Hearts for 2 decades, and it's possible that Nomura has been busy planning for the protagonist's exit from the gaming world. In that light, what would the next grand saga in this universe look like? Could it be one which resembles Nomura's Lost Epic? Perhaps. In the time since Verum Rex became known, it has, to me, become the single most interesting project Square Enix has cooking right now. I say that without a moment's hesitation, even considering the Final Fantasy remake sequels, the upcoming Final Fantasy XVI game, and even the upcoming Tomb Raider title in development. Side note, if you guys knew how much of a Tomb Raider fan I was, that last statement would actually mean something. The point is that waiting for more news of Verum Rex in the anticipation of seeing what the actual reality of this project is has basically caused me to experience like deja vu with regards to the hype buildup of Versus 13 back in the day. In fact, if you think about it, much of what has been shown as teasers for Verum Rex, from the toy box trailer to the Remind ending cutscene, has been strikingly similar to the early reveal trailers for Versus 13. This got me to thinking about a what-if scenario. We all know how much Nomura likes to map out massive storylines. It's no secret at this point. So before I dive down the rabbit hole for a bit, let's remind ourselves that Nomura is someone who consistently buries layers of symbolism, hidden meanings, and all other assorted layers of depth into his works, especially within the mythos of Kingdom Hearts. I'm sure someone somewhere out there in the world has already thought of what I'm about to suggest. But I was thinking about this stuff recently and really wanted to make a note of it for this video. With that said, I want you to just imagine for a moment the many iconic images of Noctis from Versus 13's marketing. I don't think I have to ask, but do you all remember that shot of Noctis sitting in his throne, leaning on his closed fist with his head? Well, here it is in case you don't. Now once more, this is no secret, but obviously either Nomura really loves this shot or has some hidden symbolic meaning behind it, because Sora is posed the same way in these drawings by Nomura himself, some of them old, some of them new. And again, I'm sure people have hypothesized about this theory, but what if as far back as 2006, when Versus 13 was first revealed, Nomura had plans to integrate the worlds of Versus 13 and Kingdom Hearts? After all, Kingdom Hearts is no stranger to featuring Final Fantasy characters. Oddly enough, Kingdom Hearts 3 didn't feature any Final Fantasy characters. What if the original plan for KH3 was to feature characters from Noctis' world? However, after Versus 13 was cancelled and rebooted, Nomura might have been forced to pull the allusions to Versus 13, which might just explain the complete lack of Final Fantasy in KH3. Perhaps later in development, Nomura conceived of the idea for Verum Rex and decided to use that world as a stand-in for the Versus 13 story that would have been interwoven with Sora's in Kingdom Hearts' future. Now, I'm not saying this is true, but just imagine. Now, back to my throne theory. Remember the identical throne images with Sora and Noctis that I mentioned literally just moments ago? In this one with Sora, he's wearing a crown, evoking this idea of royalty or a king, correct? Well, what does Verum Rex translate to again? It's Latin for true king. So is Yazora's true self secretly the true king, and was that image of Sora a mere red herring? Maybe, or perhaps the Verum Rex title really is only a reference to Versus 13's Noctis, as many have already suggested. With Nomura, you never can tell until the answer is directly in front of you. That said, he is prone to making massive reveals that force you to go back and completely reconsider how you view something. This is consistently true of Kingdom Hearts and its story. The more I think about all the crazy possibilities that Nomura could realize with Verum Rex, I consider how it could impact not only Kingdom Hearts, but potentially even Final Fantasy's world. The more I find, the more my excitement increases as the future of Kingdom Hearts draws closer. I have an idea that perhaps after all this time, Verum Rex might just be the greatest story Nomura ever tells. Potentially a magnum opus in the waiting. Some may balk at this, or others who dislike Nomura in his approach to narrative storytelling may ask why people care this much about Verum Rex, let alone one man's vision for a single story. Well, this next bit might seem preachy, but it's how I think about this stuff. I like to think that there are a select few creatives in the gaming industry who have a truly exceptional talent for crafting engaging, thought-provoking, and utterly monumental stories. These creatives are hindered only by the project budgets and the companies they work for. So, when someone like Nomura has a chance to spin a yarn like Verum Rex, no matter what it ends up as, I'll be there to support it. Well guys, that just about wraps it up. I really appreciate you guys watching this video all the way to the end. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any new videos, just like this one. Also, if you did enjoy the video enough, please consider liking and sharing it around so that others can see it. I really appreciate all you guys that have been subscribing, and watching my videos. I'm going to try to do my best to keep putting out good content, and I hope you like it. Have yourself a great day, and thanks again.